Welcome to the Headley Highlight Show's Royal Corner. This week in the Royal Corner, Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, visit Jordan to highlight the plight of refugees. We also have the Green-Eyed King in Waiting and Boo Boo Kitty Katie at the BAFTAs, where guests were subjected to racial slurs, and the Green-Eyed King in Waiting, who is the patron, remains silent on the entire matter. We also have this week the Green-Eyed King dressed up in a lab coat for no apparent reason. Boo Boo Kitty Katie, the idle one, goes to Wales. Queen Camilla, the side chick, is at the races. They're so busy this week. We also have the Yuck Yorks update. The Octopus one, formerly known as Prince. Little red Corvette, purple rain. Purple rain. No, we should actually have those two in the same sentence. Formerly known as Prince, the Octopus one, hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your state secrets whenever he's around. It now looks like the trafficking issue is surfacing with the use of military air bases, yes people, to bring in individuals so that they can be graped. And the fallout from the Epstein files, with more to come, continues for the House of Windsor. All this and more on the Headley Highlight Show's Royal Corner. So before I jump into this week's Royal Corner, can I say thank you to everyone who's been listening, liking and sharing. Do jump all over the Royal Corner extra this week. I did it last week and it's been posted. Please jump over to it, have a look, listen to some of the commentary. It's me, Top Chick, Damian from TikTok, and we were chewing all over the arrest last week. That's also been uploaded onto my YouTube. Don't forget to make a donation at DeniseHeadley.com. I'm very partial to 3 wings and chips and a bit of a Miranda or a piece of Bitcoin. And click the bell notification in my YouTube so that you can get all of my uploads as they appear. If you select the all button, you won't miss a thing. So let's jump all over this, darling, shall we? Right. As you know, I always start my show with good news about the Sussexes. And the good news is that the Sussexes, Harry and Meghan, are always doing something positive that has impact for the wider community. And they use their position and their voice to highlight the plight of those individuals whose voices don't carry the same weight in terms of being able to be impactful. So what you saw this week was Harry and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, they went to Jordan. The team announced they had a very short lead time. It was roughly about 12 hours, and they went with the team from the World Health Organization, the WHO. And it was the WHO coordinated this trip. There was no recourse to the British Embassy, or obviously they must have told the royals what they were doing, but there was no recourse to them. And they went out there to highlight the concerns of those people who are refugees as a consequence of the conflict and the war that's being waged against the people of Gaza by Israel. They wanted to draw attention to the refugee crisis and how that was going to, how that's impacting on everybody else and the rest of the world. This was not an official state visit because they're non-working royals, but it's important to see what they're doing at a time when the House of Windsor is embroiled in a significant, potentially criminal investigation into misuse of your role whilst in public office, but also the details of the involvement of the King's brother in this whole Epstein affair. The important thing about the Sussexes is that they're genuine. It's not for the cameras, the things that they do. They're genuinely interested in how to treat people. And if you see the pictures of Harry and Meghan on that trip to Jordan, first of all, they're holding hands, okay? And that doesn't occur with Boo Boo Kitty Katie, the idle one, and the Green-Eyed King in Waiting. They're holding hands. You can see the connection between the two of them. And when Harry is speaking to this person who has suffered horrendous injuries, listen to the way that he treats her. Everything is about dignity. You know, he's sitting down in this particular picture, so he's got eye contact. He's not standing up when he's speaking to this person, this lady. And it's all about treating people in an equal way. And I'm just going to jump over to another creator, Ministry of Hacks, where he picks up on this point. And I just want to elucidate a little bit further, just to show you how Harry and the Sussexes are. It's not for the cameras. You know, these people are genuine.
Harry and Meghan in Jordan, and I just love the way that Harry poses this question and makes sure that this young lady in the bed with injuries is comfortable to show them her injuries. He literally asked the doctor to check with this poor injured person whether she's comfortable, making sure her mental health is protected at all times. And I love Harry and Meghan because they shine a light on the things we need to talk about, and they are very victim focused. Do you understand what I'm saying here? These two are victim focused. They are always looking out for the other people that have been treated badly by society or need support and help with their lives. Could you imagine any other members of the non-working taxpayer-funded royal family, A, being in this situation, and B, asking that question? No. And this is why these two are shining a light in a very dark and changeable world, and this is why they're so popular.
Consideration, humanity, empathy, and sympathy. Things that are in very short supply outside of Harry and Meghan and the Sussexes within that family. So there's my great news. The Sussexes were in Jordan. They are shining a light on the important things, humanitarian crises, and they don't need an official visit to do that. That's just a human exercise. Also this week on the Headley Highlight Show's Royal Corner, darlings, let's jump all over the BAFTAs. Yes. So first of all, Boo Boo Kitty Katie, the idol one, and the Green-Eyed King in Waiting were available to go to the BAFTAs. They weren't available for the King's premiere of his video that had, 15 seconds of Harry in it, which is the only reason anyone was watching it. They didn't go to that premiere 2 weeks ago, but they got all dolled up and went down to the BAFTA. And as you can see from the pictures, the body language speaks volumes. If you looked at the way they were together, there was absolutely no, you couldn't see the love. The love wasn't even present. They just were standing side by side. And what's happened also is that some of the images of the Doolittle Duchess, Boo Boo Kitty Katie, they were not using Photoshop. And when they don't use Photoshop, doesn't she look like someone that hasn't had Photoshop and is desperate to need Photoshop? Those pictures of her were not, and that dress, what was that? A tablecloth wrapped around a toothpick. Please, people, no, you needed something else there. Maybe some teletape to push things up, give you a little bit of form. Otherwise, it was just the beanpole look with long trestles from the Peckham aunties. So they rocked up to the BAFTAs. Don't forget, the Green-Eyed King in Waiting, he's the patron of the BAFTAs. Then we had an incident where a person called, I think his name is John Davison, who is the screenplay about his life is based on him. He has Tourette's. And in the entire evening, he spent the evening, I think, on a number of occasions, blurting out racial slurs. And then we were told that as black people, we needed to turn the other cheek, show grace as usual, why we were abused and disrespected in a public space. And what did the patron of the BAFTAs say about that? Exactly, people. Nothing. He said nothing. Yeah? He could have made a statement, because let's not forget what happened. Michael B. Jordan, Delroy Lindo had to listen to someone shouting racial expletives behind them, and then they were told to turn the other cheek. The BBC forgot. They didn't forget. They deliberately left it in, as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion. They could have removed it because they had a 2-hour lead time, and they remembered to remove the statements from somebody else's acceptance speech, which said essentially Gaza needed to be free, and so did Congo. They didn't forget to take that out, but they left the racial slurs in, and then they broadcast it and promulgated it across the airwaves. And the green-eyed king in waiting and Boo Boo Kitty Katie, as the patron and presumably patroness of this event, remained silent, and the whole thing looked terrible. And to me, they should have come out and said something. They should have made some sort of statement. They should have effectively said, look, we don't support that, because the House of Windsor has already been identified as being an institution that has problems with racism. Yeah, they are a racist institution, and we should not be having any problems with that. Look, people, if you don't like that, just look at how they treat people, their involvement in the slave trade, their continued avarice and greed in terms of their colonies, and look at how they treated the Duchess when she came there. So you had a chance to counter that conversation, and you did what you usually do, which is absolutely nothing, because you're not interested in issues or concerns or anything like that. The green-eyed king in waiting and Boo Boo Kitty Katie are only interested in maintaining the gravy train and trying to be more popular than they currently are. Also this week, darling, we had the green-eyed king in waiting suddenly appearing in a white coat at a solo event, while his uncle's DNA was presumably being run through the DNA register to see if it had any hits of previous reported crimes. William visited in London, because he doesn't want to go too far, Francis Crick Institute ahead of their 10th anniversary. He peered down a microscope and looked in a petri dish. I think he waved his hands potentially for all of 30 seconds, and this was deemed as work for the public, which we paid £2 million a month for him and his wife for the time being, because we know that that marriage is dead. And the question is, what was the point of the exercise? Was the point of the exercise to alter some of the very dangerous, not dangerous, but revealing headlines about the extent of knowledge of the House of Windsor? But other than that, what was the point of the exercise? We then had the green-eyed king in waiting and Boo Boo Kitty Katie popping up in Wales. She was dressed like Nosferatu in that long burgundy coat, and looking very similar to Nosferatu, in need of some sustenance, because they are gaunt unless they drink the life circulating liquid in the veins of the living. Neither of them even speak a word of Welsh. I mean, given that he waited nearly 47 years to become the Prince of Wales, it might have been incumbent upon him to learn a few words like, thank you so much for allowing us to extract as much money from your community as possible. Even that wasn't bothered with or learned. So they wandered around before the, this was like a prelude to the St. David's Day on the 1st of March. And we were supposed to enjoy this exercise. The people were waiting out in the rain for the couple, who didn't do very much, as per usual, because this is just a puff and a PR exercise. And in the meantime, we had Queen Camilla at the races at the public expense, of course. And that got more coverage than the trip to Wales. And let's just jump all over now the latest updates with the Yuck Yorks. So what's happening now with the detitled one, Hide Your Kids, Hide State Secrets, Hide Anything with a Pulse and an Orifice? That one, he was arrested, yes, last week. He was released on bail. And now there's an investigation going on into the question of trafficking. And there are flight logs which show that the Lolita Express, which was Mr. Epstein's plane, was able to land in a RAF base, and then the individuals were taken from that base and escorted to the properties where the king's brother could engage in various nefarious activities with said individuals. That's been investigated. But it turns out that those official records aren't around. How unsurprising, they've been destroyed. So what's coming across to the public right now is the level of the cover-up. And all this week, you had loads of articles asking, what did the Queen know? And the reality is the Queen knew everything, because she did her very best to ensure that the cover-up was maintained. Let's not forget, she threatened the newspapers in 2011 with them being sued and injunctions being placed on them if they reported the story. And she and the current King Bitter, yes, they coughed up, along with the Queen's passed away husband, they all coughed up for the cash. So they can't say they didn't know. So this is, to me, the significant fallout of the whole Epstein affair, because now the questions are being asked about the level of knowledge that the monarchy had, their level of involvement in the cover-up, and their use of their position and power to insulate essentially predatory behavior, and also, for want of a better word, not misuse in public office, but they had a spy, basically, a spy in their midst, and they covered that up. And the consequence of the cover-up is now creating questions about the value of the monarchy. People are openly having conversations about whether it should be abolished. And I mean, they were doing that before, but because we know more and more stuff is coming out with this, I mean, this is not half of it, people, yeah? It's not half of it. It's not half of the lack of humanity that these people demonstrate towards other people, but all of the details are being revealed. And what I picked up today as well is that Keir Starmer is not going to be able to have a veto on the information that's released about the Mr. Mandelson's appointment, and how that appointment effectively was part and parcel of this entire network of ensuring that these people can behave any way they like and they never ever have to face any consequence. All of the stories this week that I've touched on, apart from the ones about the Sussexes, have been primarily dealing with the fallout of what's going on with Prince Andrew. And if you look at some of the headlines now, you're being told that the king has mishandled it, because this is the truth of it. The king has totally mishandled the situation. He hasn't acted enough. He acted way too late. And these are all the reasons why people are now saying he needs to get booted out of the space. He acted way too late. And in addition to that, there's been no investigation of the House of Windsor, and they have had no investigation into it, which we know will be a whitewash anyway. But essentially, he's being looked at now as somebody who hasn't dealt with the situation properly, and that in itself is creating immense pressure on the House of Windsor. There was a clear dereliction of duty by the previous queen, but people have this cuddly image of the queen, and I think that that's false. Okay, it's not a matter, you got this image of her bags and her handbags and smiling, but the fact is she knows what's been going on within her community, with her family. She wasn't a silly woman, but she chose not to do anything because the institution is more important than the people it harms, and that's the result. And the Queen had that mindset, as all of these individuals do have that mindset. And I think that might be the culmination of my royal news this week. I understand that the green-eyed king in waiting wants to be able to say something about the whole situation with Epstein. I mean, they issued some platitudes last week. Our concern is with the victims. What a load of tosh. But they are not can't extricate themselves from this. And this is what I said when I spoke in the Royal Corner Extra last week. I'm so glad Harry and Meghan are not in that. They were able to leave in time so that they didn't have this whole they're not embroiled in this stuff. And the reality now is that the existing royal family are dying to have them to come back, because they're the only ones that seem to have any star quality. Their soft power is immense. And also this week, I heard about, I think it was Eugenie. Apparently, 3 years ago, Eugenie, this just to show you how the yuck York stay, okay? They're getting to keep their titles, Beatrice and Eugenie. I mean, what useful purpose do they serve apart from rinsing out the public purse? And I think is it Eugenie? She's the head of a charity. Let me just check this before I start yabbering on. So way back in 2017, can you imagine this? Her dad, is still friends with a known person who has been convicted of child SA trafficking. This is Beatrice, okay? Her dad is still having a friendship, okay? They're still engaged in the relationship, her and her mum, with the sex trafficker. And my girl sets up a charity in 2017 called the Anti-Slavery Collective. Knowing what her dad does in Frogmore Cottage, well, she must know. Don't tell me that these people don't know what their parents are doing of an evening. That's rubbish, okay? Yeah? They are all embroiled in this mycelium network of humanity has no longer exists, and it's all about how much I can get for myself and who I crush in the process. So, had the picture came out in 2011. My girl Beatrice sets up the anti-slavery collective, and this is about raising awareness about modern slavery, including human trafficking. Did you chat to your poppy? Did you say, Poppy, yeah, what you think about this? It's about human trafficking. And did Daddy say, oh, listen, if you speak to anyone, bring them round the house later so I can spend some time with them. But basically, she was in charge of this. It's about forced labor, exploitation, and it's an international exercise, yeah? Have they done any programs? No. They raised £1 million. I think Idris Elba was at the event that evening. They raised £1 million, and the major activity is Beatrice's salary. Can't you see that these people are just on a grift? The anti-slavery collective has done zero, nothing. They have no programs. They've hardly spent any money. But yet, you're talking and raising your profile so you can wander around the UAE and people can, fawn at your feet because your name is HRH and that's all you do, right? But you're heading up charities where you do no work. All you do is wander around and say, oh, if this is an anti-slavery collective. And meanwhile, your own father is being accused of engaging in SA parties of minors being brought in. And they're doing that activity on the property. Round the corner, in Frogmore Cottage, in his in where you was living. And you're telling me you are the patron of a charity about anti-slavery. Please don't even bother, yeah? Just take these people's titles away, okay? Her and her sister need the titles removed. Because frankly, what use do they serve other than being parasites like the rest of the Yorks? And that's it, people. Yes, this is a quick one, and it's a strong one. Come back next week because I'll be in fighting form then. Thank you so much for listening to The Royal Corner this week. Slightly different, but hey ho, what can we do? Got to work with the program. Click the bell notification, subscribe, comment, and leave a like. See you next week, darlings, and cut!